G'day so-and-sos, welcome to our sewing room. My name's Kathy, my furry sidekick here is Lucy Purr, and this is the bag that we're going to be making this week. Now this bag is also going to find its way to one of you guys because I'm going to send it to you. I'm running a competition to win it, so just watch a little bit further and you'll find out a little bit more about that. But this bag is inspired by a Louis Vuitton bag, which is very cool. It's a very lovely design. It's got a lot of hardware, so it's not an overly complicated bag to make, but it does have a lot of components to it. So we've got our grommets, our O-ring, and then our strap, which is seamless. It's got one little seam hidden on the bottom, but no raw edges. And then we've got our boxed corners, and she's got shoes. I love a bag with shoes. Then she's got a magnetic clasp. Put your bottom away, a magnetic clasp and a zipper pocket on the inside. So I hope whoever wins it isn't allergic to cats because Lucy Purr helped. Okay, let's get cracking. Let's have a look at what we need for today. So I've got my supplies and fabric, and we'll go over the hardware in a moment. So supplies: cutting mat, acrylic rulers, scissors, rotary cutter, snippers, seam ripper. If you've got a seam roller handy, it will come in handy today, otherwise you can just use your fingers. Then clips, pins, marking tool, and I've got some double-sided tape. This one is 3/4 of an inch and this one is 1/4 inch. Now if you don't have these, you can make do without, but it will make life easier. Then we've got our fabric. So there's no actual pattern pieces to download for today's project. We start off with rectangles, and as usual, all the sizing will be in the description box along with the fabric that I've used and the interfacing that goes with. So make sure you go there and you have it all written down or printed out, but we'll go over it as usual briefly here. So my strap is 2 inches by 38 and no interfacing for that one. And then I have my 2 outside pieces, and I love this vinyl. It's from Ella Jewel and it's textured and it's beautiful. And it is 18.5 by 15. And I have 2 of those, and I don't have the interfacing on those ones yet. Now the interfacing for those, I'm using a Buckram, which is a woven medium weight iron-on interfacing. And it's an inch smaller. It is 17.5 by 14. And we're not attaching that yet. And then I have my line, another piece of interfacing there for the outside, Decoville. So I'm using Decoville heavy, and it is 5 inches by 11.5 inches. And it's going to be the base of the bag. If you don't have any Decoville or access to it, you could use another layer of Buckram instead, or you could use a piece of foam. Okay, lining pieces. I have my zipper pocket, and my zipper pocket is 16 by 9 inches, and I've used a light iron-on interfacing for that. And then I have my 2 lining pieces, and they're the same size as the exterior, which is 18.5 by 15, and I've interfaced them with a light iron-on interfacing. Let's have a look at our hardware. So there is a little bit of hardware today, but it's nothing too scary. So I've got some grommets, and my grommets are 1/2 inch, and I'm going to be using 8 of those. And just make sure that you've got the correct install tools because it'll make life a lot easier. Then I've got some purse feet. I'll use 6 of those. I need a magnetic clasp and my O-rings, and my O-rings that I'm using are 1.5 inches. I've got a little handmade symbol that I'm going to whack on there. I've got 2 1-inch swivel hooks, some zipper tape, and it's 8.5 inches, and then a number 5 zipper pull, and this one looks like Lucy Purr. So now we're going to get started on shaping our pieces, and it's super easy. I'll show you one, and then while I do the others, I'm going to tell you how you can enter the competition to win this bag. So I'm going to take one of my pieces, wrong side up, make sure that I'm working on the bottom edge if you have a pattern on your fabric, And what I'm going to do is measure a 3 by 3 inch box on the bottom corners. So 3 inches across, 3 inches down. Give myself a pen mark, and then I'll use my rotary cutter, but I won't go all the way up because I don't want to cut too far. That's why I've got my pen mark, and then cut the rest of it out. Now I'm going to do this to the bottom corners on both lining pieces, both exterior pieces, and both of my buckram pieces. So while I do that, let's talk. So I've been wanting to give away a bag for a while and to do a giveaway, but I'm kind of shy about giving away my work because I'm worried that it won't be good enough. But I have a friend that is in the US, and she's a wonderful, beautiful person. And unfortunately, last year she got a cancer diagnosis. So she went through all the rigmarole of getting her insurance sorted and some grants and everything else. And she was approved for a immune therapy, which is very cool because it increased her chances significantly. Let's just have a look at that. So 3 inches by 3 inches out of every bottom corner. So that was really good. And then unfortunately, the rug got pulled out from underneath her with the changes that were made to the American healthcare system. And I'm not going to get political, but it sucked. It really, really sucked. So now she's stuck with having to come up with more grants and more money herself, which is just not feasible. She's quite ill and she's a single income household. So it's really put a big strain on her, and it's also affected her chances of having a good outcome. So myself and some other friends have been raising money where and when we can. And so this is what I wanted to do with this bag. And I'm not asking for a lot of money. What I've done is I've turned on super thanks on YouTube. So there's a button below with the like button and subscribe button. If you go along there, there's a button with a money sign on there. And that is super thanks. And that's something that viewers can use with their favorite YouTubers to just make a small donation, I guess, or a small contribute to give them money. So what I'm asking is that to enter the competition to win for it, you go there and you make whatever sort of donation you can. And it can be as small as $1.99 is the smallest amount I think that you can do on there. And that's fine if that's what you can afford and to give, then that's not a problem. And everyone that enters and does a super thanks will go into the running to win this bag, no matter how much you're able to give. And then I will cover the cost of shipping anywhere in the world. So I don't care where you are, I will ship it to you. And I will be very, very grateful. And all of that proceeds, 100% of what is raised, will go to her towards her continued care and to help make her comfortable. Cut that out and cut that out. So what I'll be doing is actually just giving her a lump sum a little bit earlier on so that she has that funds immediately. And if there's more that comes in, great. That would be fantastic, but she kind of needs some money now. So I'll be doing that. So I'll be letting the competition run for 40 days, I think, from when this video goes live. So I'll post the dates below to make sure I have all that correct, because math is not my strong point, as we know. And I'll be putting all the names into like an app generator. I'll have to figure that out. And I will do it either live if I can figure that out, or I'll put the video up so that everyone knows that, you know, it's all fair and legit. So the more people that see this video, the better. So another way that you can help, whether you are able to enter or not, another way that it can help is to share this video as much as you can so that more people see it and more people enter to win. And another way that that helped is that I'll be also giving her all of the proceeds from my ad revenue from this video. So the more people that watch this video, the more money will be raised that way as well. So the more will go to her. And I will give her all of the ad revenue for this video for that same period of time, for that 40 days. So the more that you know, you're able to share it and interact with it, like, comment, all that type of thing, so the YouTube algorithm picks it up, the more that will help. So I would be incredibly grateful because I want to raise as much money as I possibly can to help her out, because I love her a lot. She's a wonderful, wonderful person. And if you knew her, you would love her too. So make sure that with your, if you do have a pattern piece, that you are working on the bottom side. So let me have a look at these and make sure that they are both, yep, that's the way I want my roses. So bottom corners. So yeah, if you could help out, that would be absolutely wonderful. And I know that so many people in the US are in a similar situation at the moment, with sort of not knowing what's going on with funding. And I am just incredibly grateful for the healthcare that I recently got. If you watched one of my recent videos, I was recently transported by air ambulance halfway across the state after a injury and had surgery. And I'm just, I mean, it was still a hassle, and I've got pretty good health insurance in Australia. But even if I didn't, I still would have been cared for. Might not have been cared for in a private hospital, but I still would have been looked after. So I'm incredibly grateful for the help that I got with that and the care that I got in hospital. And I'm still recovering, but I still have access to really good care to help me recover and everything else. So, you know, I'm feeling very grateful for my journey and appreciative of all the help that I've had. So I just really want to pay that forward and do what I can for someone else. And I've never met this woman in real life. I really hope to one day. She's a Facebook friend. Like I said, she's in the US, she's in Florida. But I love her just the same. Like, I've never met her, but I love her and I care for her deeply. And she's been a wonderful friend for many years. So yeah, if you guys can help me out to help her, that would be amazing in whatever way that you can. And I'm also kind of excited to give this bag away because I love this pattern. Okay, so that's how you do it. Go ahead, hit that super thanks button, hit that share button, like, comment, interact with the video as much as you can to help out. And we'll move on to the next bit, and just thank you so much. So I've gone ahead and attached my buckram to my vinyl and let that cool down before I work with it. And now I'm just going to mark all of my centers, top and bottom. So just fold all of my pieces in half and give myself a tiny little snip on the top and the bottom. And I'll do that to all four. Sit and do nothing. I wish we were bold to just fly away. I don't wanna care. Just be here and I'm good alone. I'll be okay. And last one. Cool. Okay, I'm gonna pop my exterior to the side for a minute, and we're going to work on one of our lining pieces. So I'm going to do the zipper box and we'll install the zipper pocket. So let's pop it over, grab our ruler and our marking pen, marking tool, and I'm going to measure down from my center snip 2.5 inches. So 1, 2.5, and give myself a 7-inch line. So 3.5 in one direction and 3.5 in the other, like that. And then I will come down 1/2 inch from there and do another line. So my 1/2 inch line is lined up on that line I just drew, and give myself another line like that. And then I'll just fill in the sides, there and there. So I've got a 1/2 inch box, 7 inches long. Now I'll measure up from the bottom, a 1/4 inch, and give myself a line. So I've just got a line going through the middle. Most of you would have installed a zipper like this before. Give myself some little triangles. Sorry, you can't really see that very well. My pen's running out. I'll have to grab another one. Cool. So 7 inch box, 2.5 inches down, 1/2 inch wide. Flip him over, find my zipper pocket. Found him. Okay, what I'm going to do now is have my lining piece right side up, grab my zipper pocket and place them right sides together. Measure down 1.5 inches from my center snip. 1.5. Oh, mark this guy. So let's give myself a center mark on him. Like that. Place them right sides together so my center snips line up. And I'll whack some pins in there. Grab my little pinny pins and whack some pins up the very top so it's not going to get in the way of when I sew my box. Okay, and then one down here. Now I'll take that over to the sewing machine and we are just going to sew around the edges of our outside box. So I'm going to make sure that my zipper pocket is folded down out of the way and it's not accidentally folded up. And my stitch length is nice and short. It's around a 3. And I'm going to start on one of these top corners and I'm just going to work my way around, remembering to backstitch at the beginning and the end. And we're done with that. Okay, let's stitch those pins. Cool. Now flip him over so the lining's wrong side up. Grab my seam ripper and I'm going to poke my seam ripper through the whole lot on that center line and carefully rip up the length of that middle line that I drew. And get nice and close to the stitches on either end without quite hitting them. If you do accidentally hit them, just take it back over and reinforce it. It'll be fine. Cool. Grab my little scissors. And then I'm going to snip along those little triangles that I drew nice and close to those corner stitches. Again, as close as you can without actually hitting them, so that our corners in our zipper pocket lays nice and flat. And then I will turn my iron on because I forgot to do that. Not like me. Okay, got my iron nice and hot. Going to flip my piece over so I've got the pocket side up. And I'm just going to fold up these edges and give them a hit with the iron just to make it a little bit easier when I turn them out. Now I just had to clean some gunk off the bottom of my iron. I don't know what I was ironing over. But if you ever have to do that, if you ever get like interfacing or something on your iron, don't use abrasive stuff to try and scrub it off. The best thing to do is to let your iron get warm, then turn it off so you don't burn yourself, and use a dryer sheet and rub a dryer sheet all over the bottom of your iron. And it makes the gunk or goo or glue or interfacing, whatever you've got on there, sort of go hard and brittle, and then it just peels off. So, and it makes your room smell amazing. But when I did it the other day, I accidentally melted my nails. So that's why my nails are shorter. So now we're going to flip our pocket out the right way. So if you've got tips on that are plastic, be really careful when cleaning your iron. Oh, I'm such an idiot. Okay, so poke all this out. Get that laying nice, and then we'll give that another hit with the iron. Okay, flip him over, and that's looking pretty good. If you do have a heap of puckers around here, just turn it back out and snip a little bit closer to your corners. Okay, I'll get rid of this iron. Okay, let's pop that up there. Grab my piece of zipper tape. Pull my zipper head right down to the end as close as I dare. And if you like, go over to the sewing machine and just zip down those corners. So less chance of your zipper head flying off, but I'm gonna risk it because I don't want to get up again. Okay, double-sided tape. And I'm going to lay that up along both the top and the bottom edges, and that will help keep my zipper in place as we sew. But like I said, if you don't have any, you can just make do with pins. This just makes life a little bit easier. And along that bottom edge, like that. And get this tape off. That's one. And that's two. Now I've got this tape off Temu, and I've got the other tape that I'll be using today as well, off Temu as well. And the other tape is like super strong. It's the strongest double-sided tape I've ever been able to find. So I'll pop a link in the description box along with a link for all the hardware that I've used. Okay, I'm going to get my teeth nice and straight. Grab my lining and place it. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to place that over the top with about 1/2 inch or so on either end. I'll worry about that zipper head in a sec. My little Lucy Purr zipper head. Okay. Look, she's even got a bit of a wonky tail. All right, let's whack some pins in there, and then we'll take that over to the sewing machine and we'll sew down around that outside box, keeping our zipper in place. And while we're there, we'll then fold up the zipper pocket. I've got all these wonky pins. And sew that up, but I'll show you how to do that if you haven't done that before. Okay, same thing, just make sure that your zipper pocket is folded down and out of the way so you're not sewing over anything that you don't mean to. And I'll start up on this edge, and I'm using a 1/8 or a zipper foot, so I'm making sure that the side of my foot is lined up with the side of that fabric. So we are nice and close, and just work my way around, and I'm just going to move that zipper head out of the way as I go, so it is nowhere near the needle as we are sewing. Cool, okay, that is that done. Let's have a look at this pocket. So what we're going to do is flip it over, grab some scissors and just trim down this zipper tape as close to the edge as you're comfortable doing. Get rid of that. Throw it on the floor for the magic cleaning fairy later. Okay, then I'm going to grab my zipper pocket and just bring it up to the top there. And I'm going to sew along these 3 sides. So what I'm going to do is fold under my lining. If you want to grab some clips or something to hold your zipper pocket in place, go ahead, but I'm fairly confident of being able to have it where I want it. There. So just make sure you're folding up your lining and you're not sewing through your lining. And I'll go down each side, and I'm at around 3/8 of an inch. And then other side, and then the top. So again, fold up my lining. About 3/8. And then I can go across the top. And that is our zipper pocket installed. So there's our zipper pocket done. Now let's attach our magnetic clasps. So I'm going to turn this over so it's wrong side up, grab my ruler and a pen, and I can fold that, oh, you're right there, Liz. Can fold that down out of the way, and I'm going to measure down 1.5 inches from my center snip and give myself a little circle there. Grab one of my backing bits, pop that on there, and then I'm just going to scribble in the sides like that. There we go. Then I'm going to grab my seam ripper and I'm going to poke my seam ripper in through my lining at the bottom of that line. Just carefully give myself those little cuts there. Grab one of my magnetic clasps, and from the front I'm going to poke those prongs through. Grab my backing, whack him on, open up the sides, and there we go. And I'll do the other bit exactly the same.
There's not much to do when all I can is thinking about you. Not doing well, don't know where you are, 'cause you're not here. It's been way too long.
Cool, that is those done. Awesome. Lucy, get off my iPad. You better not turn that camera off. Okay, now I'm going to pop these together, right sides together. Let that attach to help hold them and get them nice and lined up. And then I'll grab my clips. Okay, I'm going to whack some clips down along the sides. And then we're going to take that over to the sewing machine and we are going to sew down the sides, and a little bit along the bottom we are going to leave ourselves a turnout hole. So I'm going to measure in just 1 inch from each of my bottom corners. So there and there, so 1 inch in. And all this bit here is going to be my turnout hole. We want a nice big one. So whack some clips along the bottom. And we'll take that over to the sewing machine, sew down the sides, those 1 inch bottom, and while we're there, we'll box the corners, but I'll show you just in case you don't know what I'm talking about. Let's go do that. Okay, so I shot my stitch length to around 3.5, And I'm at around a 1/2 inch seam allowance for these bits. Little back stitch. And I'll go down both sides and then along the bottom. Okay, that's them done. So now what we're going to do is box these corners. So if you've done it before, you'll know what I mean. We're just going to stick our fingers in the corners, open it up sideways, and pop those seams together. Just trying to stay in frame. So my seams are together, laying nicely. Lucy Purr, goodness me, you're driving me mad. Whack some clips on there. Across my seam. So I'm just trying to stay in frame so you can see, like that. So then my corner is boxed, and then same thing with this one. Stick my fingers in those corner bits, open it up, and then lay my seams together like that. And whack some clips on there. And then we can stitch those down. So like that, there's my side seam, there's my bottom seam, and I've pulled that sideways. Okay, now I will flatten that out and sew that. So when I've done my seams, I've got my bottom seam laying this way, and then my side seam will be laying the other way. And then around 1/2 inch. When we get to that middle bit, I'll just pivot ever so slightly. Oh, my thread got caught. That's all right. Cool. Okay, there's one. Okay, other one. So again, I want one seam going that way and the other seam going the other way. So they are seated. Just makes it sit a little bit neater. Cool. Okay, that is our lining taken care of. Let's get started on our exterior pieces. So don't be tempted to go ahead and do it the same as we did our lining, because it's a little bit different. But we're going to start off the same. So let's place our pieces right sides together so we can see the back of them, and whack some clips down along the side and along the bottom. And then what we're going to do is take it over to the sewing machine, but we're only going to sew along the bottom piece. And what we're going to do then is I'm going to use my seam roller to then open up that bottom seam, flip it over and top stitch it. So let's go do that. Missed. So since I'm now sewing with my vinyl pieces, I've swapped over to a Teflon foot and a slightly heavier needle. So I'm using a 90 weight needle now, and shorten my stitch length to around a 3. Make sure I backstitch, and the same thing, about 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way across. Cool. Now, like I said, we're going to open up that seam and use my seam roller. If you want to take it back to the table and do this, then you can, but it's just as easy to do here. So I'm going to open it up, as long as you can see what I'm doing, like that. Open up that seam and work at it for a minute with my seam roller. If you used a cotton woven, you'll be able to go over and just give it a bit of a hit with the iron, which will work a lot better. But let's just give it a bit of a minute with this. Cool. Flip him over, and I'm just going to make sure that seam is open. Lengthen my stitch length to around 4.5 because I'm now top stitching. And I'm going to line up that side of my foot with my seam. So I'm at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And as I go, I'm just going to make sure that seam is laying open and flat. And I'm going to give myself a little back stitch. Now, when I do the other side, I'm going to do the same thing as what we do when we do a strap. I'm going to start at the same end. And the reason I'm going to do that is that vinyl does have a little bit of stretch. Even the best vinyl has a little bit of stretch. So because I sewed from here to here, that means my vinyl might have stretched the tiniest bit in that direction. If I start at this end and go back up, then it's going to stretch in the opposite direction and might make my work sit a little bit funny. So I want this bag to be as good as I can get it for whoever wins it. So I'm going to start up at this end. Okay, let's go and give this girl her shoes. So there's our bottom seam done and then top stitched. Now what I've done is gone ahead with my decoville. I folded it in half and found my center snips there. And then I folded it in half that way and found my center snips there. And I've got my iron heating up. So I'm going to place my decoville over my bag. So I'm making sure my center snip is lined up with that center seam along the bottom. And the edges of my decoville should line up with my buckram. Then I'm going to give it a whack with the iron. So I'm just going to let my iron sit there for 5 seconds or so and then move it. I'm not going to rub back and forth. Lift and move. And decoville can take a little while. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt. So I'm going to sit here and iron this on and play some music or something.
Say what you wanna say to me now. I wanna wake up with you in the morning. Show me there's nothing fake to me now. I wanna wake up with you in the morning.
I think that's good. So that's a decoville on. Now I want that to cool down before I start messing with my purse feet. So I'm going to attach my little handmade sign thing. So I'm going to measure down from this top snip 1.5 inches from the top. Measure down 1.5, give myself a good mark, get that out of the way, grab this thing and find the middle of it. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 4, so I want that center bar there, like that. Now I want this nice and straight, don't want it to be wobbly. So I'm going to fill in on mine anyway, if you've got the same one as mine, each end, and then the third one from the left and the right, because I know that's where my prongs line up to. So whatever you're going to stick on there, if you stick on anything, just make sure that you line that up properly. And same as what we did with the magnetic clasp, very carefully. I've never been so nervous making a bag. Very carefully, I'm going to put my seam ripper in there and slit up there. Like that. And then I will just pop these prongs through the front and close up the back. Cool. Make sure it's up the right way. It's not upside down. Cool. Like that. Pretty. There we go. Looking good. Okay, purse feet. What I'm going to do is measure 1/2 inch in from the long edge, and I'm going to give myself a mark right at that center snip there, and then 1 inch from this end and 1 inch from that end. So I'm 1 inch in from either corner and 1/2 inch up along the length, and then 1 mark at the center snip. So same thing on this end. Measure up 1/2 inch from my long edge, give myself a mark right at that center snip, and then 1 inch along and 1/2 inch up, and then same thing here. 1 inch from this edge and 1/2 inch up from the bottom. And give myself a mark. Then seam ripper and purse feet. And I'll need to find a little screwdriver too. Okay, going to poke my seam ripper in and just give myself the tiniest, just little screws, little mark, little cut along that vinyl. Like that. Now what I'm going to do is take my screw, pop it through that hole, and I might need to make that hole a little bit bigger. I might need to fuss with it, but then screw on my purse feet from the front, screw it on, and just do all of those the same. She's got shoes. So now she's got her shoes on and her little badge. What we're going to do is clip up the sides. So I've got it right side up, fold her in half, and then I'm going to whack some clips down along this side. Now we're going to go over then and sew down along the sides, but don't be tempted to go ahead and box your corners like we did with the lining, because we are going to do something a little bit extra with the sides before we go ahead and box the corners. So we'll bring it back to the table. So line up those sides And just take your time getting this right because it's a little bit hard now that we've got the bottom done and that Decaville is there. So make sure it's nice and neat. Cool. That's what we should look like. Let's take it over and sew these sides down. So I'm going to shorten my stitch length down to around a 3, and I want to be at about 1/2 inch seam allowance. About there. And just sew down my sides, remembering to back stitch at the top and bottom. Cool. So there's our sides sewn down. Now I've got my double-sided tape, the thicker stuff, and my not so good scissors. So I'm going to grab my tape. I'm going to have my bag laying sideways in front of me, and I'm going to lay this tape up along the edge of that seam I just did, getting as close to those stitches as I can. Now this tape is great for this. This is one that I got off Temu, and it was just a couple of dollars per roll, which is great because I go through heaps of it, but it is sticky. So it works really well for this bit. So take that off, and that's so satisfying too. Fold this seam up onto that tape, and this is just going to hold the side of our bag so nice because we've got our bottom all nicely top stitched down, but that's near impossible to do once you're into the construction of the bag with your sides. So we're going to use that tape, and then I'm just going to do that to this side as well, and then I'm going to flip the bag over, and do the other side.
Say what you wanna say to me now. I wanna wake up with you in the morning. Show me there's nothing fake to me now. I wanna wake up with you in the morning. Say what you wanna say to me now. I wanna wake up with you in the morning. Show me there's nothing fake to me now. I wanna wake up with you in the morning. Turn this room, turn it to an ocean. Let me float around.
Cool. That is those. I'm sticking to everything now though. That is those all stuck down. So when you do this, you really want to use a good double-sided sticky tape, or if you've got a really good fabric glue and you don't mind gluing it down and then leaving it for a couple of hours or a day or whatever. I'm just doing that for fun now. Then yeah, you just want to make sure that those side seams are nice and stuck down. Now we can grab some clips and box our corners. So it's a little bit trickier because we've got all this firmness happening now, but that's okay. So open up that bottom corner, put my seams together and whack some clips on there. And now I'll just make a little note to myself that if you didn't get the, see what I was doing properly when I was doing the lining, because I did it at the machine, to fast forward and watch this bit so you can see a bit better. So fingers in the sides, open it up, match up those seams, make sure that your seams are together, whack some clips on there, all the way across, and it should be sitting like pretty perfect. If you cut out your corners perfect, that 3 inches by 3 inches, we should be sweet. Cool, okay, let's take all that over to the machine and we'll sew down those corners. Okay, so I want my stitch length to be around 3 and my seam allowance to be around 1/2 inch. And I'm going to make sure I backstitch. And I'm sort of feeling where my purse feet are with these fingers just to make sure I'm not anywhere near them. I'm going to hold this seam down. It's taped down, but I want to make sure as I go. And then what I'm going to do is do another row of stitches just to the left. So just to the outside of those ones. So further up the bag is what I mean. A bit further in. Just to reinforce those corners. And then I'll do the same thing to the other side. Too easy. Okay, so go ahead and stick your fingers in there and just make sure that your fingers don't pop through any corners or anything, that you've caught it all the way through. Then we're going to turn this out, turn it the right way. So grab the bottom, and then what I'm trying to do is fold the top rather than yank at the bottom. I'm trying to fold the rest of the bag up and over, if that makes sense. Just puts a little bit less stress on your stitches. But as you go, if you hear any rips or tears, then turn it back out, find it, and then take it back over. Oh, okay, spend a minute doing this bit. Really poke those corners out. Hopefully I'll try not to pop off a nail. Whoever gets this might find one of my fingernails in there. Okay, cool. And then I'm just going to sort of wiggle those corners a little bit just to make sure they're sitting out and sitting nice. But with the way we did the bottom and the sides, that should all be sitting really nice and flat and pretty. Cool. So nice. Cool. Okay, if you need to go ahead and just make sure that your screws are still all screwed in and all your hardware is good before we go on to the next bit, then do that. But I think mine are all pretty good. I'm loving how that looks. Look at this so far. Awesome. Okay, let's grab the lining. Now I'm going to grab my lining, open it up. So now my bag is right side out and my lining is wrong side out. And I'm going to pop my exterior into the lining. So they are now right sides together. And I want my little hardware bit to be on the side of my lining that doesn't have the zipper pocket. But it's not a big deal. So if you don't get what I mean, then don't stress. Okay, pop that in like that. Grab some clips and I'm just going to start clipping. So I'm going to find my center snips on my exterior and my lining and whack some clips on there. And you really want to take your time with this. So I'm just going to get my bits lined up and then I'll fuss with it. And then this side. Did I wake you up, Lucy Purr? So center snip and center snip, line them up, and it's going to be a tight fit. So if you're struggling to make it fit, that's how it's meant to be, because we want our lining just a little bit tighter so it fits nicely. Cool, okay. And then our side seams. I'm going to find our side seams, and I'm going to open up that side seam on the lining like that. So that seam's open. Whack a clip on there. And then same on this side. Open up that side seam. Line that seam up with my exterior seam. And clip there. Okay. Then I'm just going to whack a whole heap of clips all the way around, making sure it's nice and neat. My head tilt. Idiot. That's looking good. I think that will hold. All right, we'll take that over to the sewing machine, and we are going to stitch down around this entire top edge at around 1/4 inch. I'm gonna have a stretch. Okay, see you over there. Okay, so I'm going to start on one of my side seams. And like I said, I want to be about 1/4 to 3/8 inch. I just want to give myself enough room to work with. My stitch length is around 3. I'm going to backstitch, and I'm just going to work my way all the way around. Backstitch there. Cool. So there she is stitched together. Now just go around and make sure that you caught both sides all the way around. And if you went a little bit wide anywhere, then just trim it down. But I think I'm pretty good. Okay, now this bit, we're going to birth the bag. So hope you had your Weet Bix, because this is a big bag. We're going to reach in through that turnout hole down the bottom, and just start really carefully working your bag out. Now, same thing as what I said before, rather than yanking at the bottom, I'm going to try and pull the lining up over the exterior. And if you hear any rips or anything, turn around and go back. Well, it's not going to be as bad as I thought. No, that was easy. Easy. Didn't need to have my Weet Bix after all. It's a good thing because I had peanut butter toast. Okay. Now, poke out these corners. Awesome. Now, turnout hole. I will give it a hit with the iron, but I'll just do that off camera. But I'm just going to stick my fingers in there, find my turnout hole. I'll iron that, and I'll whack some clips on there, take it back to the sewing machine, and I'll change out my thread to a red, and I will sew down that. But you don't need to watch me do that. If you've come this far, you can close the turnout hole. So I'll see you back here in a minute. So there's my turnout hole done. Now I'm going to stuff it into the bag, and So nice. Now I'm going to roll this seam in my fingers and whack some clips on. Now I'm not going to be tempted to use the iron. I mean, if you used all cotton woven, then you could definitely iron this seam down. But I could do it from the inside, but I don't wanna. And honestly, it is sitting beautifully. It is sitting exactly where I want it to. Going that little bit wider with the seam allowance, that's sort of 3/8 or so, means that you can sort of fold that seam down because you can feel it. So I'm just going to whack some clips all the way around, and then we'll take it back over to the machine and top stitch it. But I am going to change out now to a top stitching thread. So I've been using a all-purpose polyester Gutermann thread, and I really recommend, no matter what your project is, that you use a good quality thread, no matter what you're doing. So I've been using an all-purpose, but the top stitching thread is a little bit thicker, and it's a little bit more UV resistant and all that type of thing. So it will last longer and it will look nicer. So I'm going to just clip all the way around and then we'll take it over. I'm going to lengthen my stitch length to around a 4.5 and just work my way around at 1/8 of an inch. So I'm lining up the side of my foot with the outside of my bag. Little back stitch and just work my way around, trying to stay nice and consistent and trying to make sure that my seam is nice and flat. Back around and back stitch. Sorry about the bag and the camera, but that bit's done. How fabulous does she look? Okay, we're going to pop this bit to one side and we're going to work on our strap. So I've got my strap, going to lay it wrong side up in front of me. I've got my swivel hooks, double-sided tape, pen and ruler. So I am going to measure up 1 inch along the edge and give myself a mark all the way down, like that. And then when I lay my tape, I'm going to leave about 1 inch or so at each end. So I'm going to lay my tape all the way down. Now, sometimes when I do this, I sort of just do hit and miss pieces. You want to lay it all the way down, just leaving about 1 inch or so at each end. And I'm going to be a little bit extra careful to make sure that it's laying down along that center line. Now, when I do it, I'm also going to let my tape kind of be loose, if you see what I mean, because I don't want it to pull at my strap. And I want it to lay right along that line, like that. Then just with that little bit at the end, my not so good scissors. Don't want sticky tape all over my good scissors. Now, before I pull that tape off, what I'm going to do is grab my swivel hooks and I'm just going to squish up my strap a little bit and whack my swivel hooks on there. So the hooky bit is on the outside, like on the exterior, on the right side of my fabric, like that. Cool. Now I can take my tape off and start folding in my sides to meet each other. But that's as far as we're going to go at this stage. So just folding them in. We're not going to fold again, so just into the middle on both sides. And I'm being careful, I don't want to swipe or pull at my fabric either, I don't want it to stretch. So just gently placing it into the middle, and you can see that I started kind of in the middle, roughly. I didn't start at one end.
There's not much to do when all I can is thinking about you, not doing well. Don't know where you are, 'cause you're not here. It's been way too long.
Now that I've kind of got one side done, squish that down. I'm going to wiggle my swivels down there. And then this one. And then I'll work on that second half. Get them down out of the way, flip you around. There, okay, cool. Now this bit.
How we talk on the phone every night. Love to hear your voice. Not sleeping well. And I know
Cool,
that you're
bananas.
right, but you should know it.
Now what I'm going to do with these ends. So I'm going to take my strap, and it's now right side up, so that folded edge, that taped down edge is in my palms. So it's right side up. Going to take my ends and place them right sides together, and then open up those ends like that. And this is why we didn't want tape all the way to the end. Line up those edges, whack some clips on there. And we're going to take that over to the sewing machine, and we're going to sew these ends together at around 1/2 inch. And then we're going to roll that seam open and top stitch it flat. If I can unstick my fingers. Okay, let's go do that. Okay, so I want a good 1/2 inch seam allowance, shorten my stitch length to around a 3, back stitch, and all the way across. And I've stuck my fingers to my strap. Okay, so I'm going to lay that open, and then I'm going to fold these seams down like that. Give that a little roll. Get that nice. Lengthen my stitch length back up to around a 4. Flip that over and top stitch that. So 1/8 of an inch, nice and close to that side. Little back stitch. Try not to glue my strap to my machine. And same thing as before, I'm going to start back up at that same edge, because this vinyl that I'm using for the strap is quite stretchy. Okay, now while we're here, I am going to now fold in the rest of those sides. That bit come undone a little bit. Fold in that seam that we just did. Oops, some of it unraveled on me. Fix all that up nicely. And then I am going to place that seam that we just did in the middle of our strap and take my hooks down to either end like that. So I want that seam in the middle, and lay the pieces on top of each other. So I've now got a hook on either end of my strap, and my two ends are together, so I'm in a continuous piece. Now I'm going to use a ruler that I've got here to make sure that that seam is in the middle. So if you need to take it back to the table, whatever you need to do. And then I'm going to whack some clips on to hold that in place. Now, when I top stitch this, I'm going to go across, down, all the way around, all four sides. When I do this, I'm going to make sure that I've got it up so that the side with the seam is at the bottom, and I'm stitching on the piece that doesn't have the side seam. So I'm top stitching on this side and the seam is underneath, because when you're top stitching, it stitches on the top just sit just a little bit nicer. So I'll start down near one of my hooks, being careful to hold it. My stitch length is still nice and long. Back stitch a little, come across, needle down, pivot, and then just work all the way around. One more, back stitch. Cool, that looks good. Now we're up to the final bit of our bag where we install our grommets and our O-rings. So I've got my grommets, my rings, my little hammer to install them. And I hate to say it, the feminist in me is cringing, but I need a man. My hands are giving me a bit of trouble this week, so I need a big, strong man. I'm going to go find one of them and I'll be back in a sec. Okay, I have a man and I have my bag. I have my grommets and my install tools. So what I'm going to do is take my bag and lay it down, and I'm going to fold it over so that my side seam is laying in front of me. So my side seam is going to be lined up with the bottom of my boxed corner, and it'll sort of want to sit there naturally for you anyway, but make sure my top is lined up. Grab my ruler and I'm going to measure and just make sure that that is even all the way up, and it looks pretty good. So then I'll whack some clips on there like that, and I will flip it over. So now I'm going to be working on the front of the bag. Grab my ruler, and from this top corner, I'm going to measure over and down 1 inch and give myself a mark. So 1 inch over and 1 inch down, and give myself a chalk mark. And that is where I'm going to get Adrian to punch my hole. So what I'm going to do is get Adrian to open up the bag, so he's only punching through that one bit there, not punching through the whole lot. And he's going to get the whole bit, the hole making bit. Can you just pass it to me just so I can show? He's going to get this, pop that right over that mark, and he's going to give it a whack. But he's not going to do it on my nice table. He's going to do it over there on that solid table. Got it?
Yep.
Awesome. So we've got 4 of our grommets in and ready. Now we have to mark where we're going to put the other ones. So what I'm going to do is grab my side seam and pinch it in and bring my bag in like that. So I'm now like that. So my side seam it'll all sort of sit naturally where it wants to sit. So with those corners lined up down the bottom, and pinch it in, make sure your tops are all nice and lined up like that. Cool, whack some clips on to hold it in place. Whack some there and whack some there. And we'll whack one there. Cool. Now I'm going to lay it flat, grab my pen, and I'm going to use the grommet that's already there to help me find where the next one goes. So give myself a circle in there, flip it over, and then same thing on this side. Give myself a really good mark, and then I'll do the same thing to this side. So get my side, let it fold in, let it all sort of sit where it naturally wants to sit. Pinch those sides in so it's looking good. Grab my pen and whack some holes, draw some holes in there. Then I will give that back to Adrian and he's going to make some holes.
Whack some holes.
Whack some holes and then whack some grommets in. Okay, so what it's going to look like once I open that back up like that, then I can see my marks there and there. So that's where they're going to be. There's my side seam and that's where our new holes are going to be, and then there's the next two. You're up. Okay, we've got all of our grommets in. Now we can attach our rings. So what I'm going to do is take my bag, I'm going to pop my ring through the first hole, like that, and let it close. And then fold it in, pop it through the second, like that. Let that click, fold it in, pop it through the third, and then fold and pop it through the fourth, like that. And that looks amazing. Pop that side in, fold it in loose. And there's one. Grab the other one and do the same thing. Pop it in. So the grommets can be a little bit of a pain, can't they? Had to put Lucy in because it was terribly noisy. But different sets of grommets that you'll buy have different tools to use to install them. So it all depends on what you buy and how you go about putting them in. Okay, so there's our rings. Where's my strap? Yeah, Lucy. So there's our strap. Clip him on, making sure that that seam is at the bottom, not the top. And she's looking fabulous. How good is that? Oh, wow, this is my favorite. I want to keep it now. No, I'm giving it away. I want to raise money for my beautiful friend. So keep that in mind, guys, when you watch this, that I am doing this to raise money for my friend. So, but you know, you, with the super thanks, do as much as you can. If it's $1.99, that's fine. That buys you an entry into the competition to win this beautiful bag. And like I said, the more you can share and get more people to watch and enter, then the better it is. Okay, thank you so much for coming along today for the ride. I really enjoyed making that, and I think I'm going to make more of these because they are fabulous. All right, guys, I'll see you next week. And until then, remember, it's just fabric. We can always buy more. See ya. Bugger.